Next up on the number one tee.
Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori and I am your host today. And we have Joe Foley here, back, Executive Director from the Arizona Golf Association. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Tori. Happy to be here.
I mean, it's early.
It's
early. Are you an early person?
Today, no. But, normally I am. No, I actually was going through my morning routine last night to plan a new one. So
really,
not really a morning person, but we're looking forward to maybe a new way.
Okay, well now you have to fill us in. What's going to be in your new morning routine? Let's put it out there.
All the rave now is this whole like cold plunge idea, right?
Yeah.
So like wake up and one of the first things you do is get cold.
Yeah.
Whether you jump in a pool or you take a cold shower. So that's like the biggest.
So are you going to do a shower or are you going to actually can you go is there a pool at your facility or at your house or anything?
I would say it'll be a shower to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Anything else? That sounds terrible.
I know. The other thing they say is get up right away. Don't use a sleep timer.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Get up, move from your bedroom and move into a new space. And then it's going to be cold shower. And then maybe meditate. Oh my gosh, I'm setting a lot of expectations for myself.
Yeah.
And it's on the record
now.
No,
it is on the record. And I mean, this is like new month, new Joe kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow. I like it.
I'll let you know.
Is there something that's been leading up to this big morning routine change?
I don't know. I don't know if it's something exactly. One thing I get wrapped up in is work and my thoughts right away when I start my day.
Yeah.
Right. So when I've talked to my therapist about this, they're like, if you want to get away from work or if you want to start your day with intention, start it with a routine. Don't start it with, don't get right on your phone right away. Or don't get wrapped up in work calls. Right. So that's sort of the impetus.
We'll
see if it helps my golf game.
I like it.
Yeah.
My morning routine has been lacking. I definitely was one that used to, for a long period of time. Yeah. As soon as the alarm went off, I'm up. I get up right away, but I've been laying down longer.
What does it look like now?
Well, I definitely am picking up my phone pretty quickly and then not getting out of bed for another 20, 30 minutes. And it doesn't feel good. So you know what, maybe I'll put on the record now today too, that maybe at least I'll do that. Just get up right away now.
Yeah. I guess because they say that if your mind starts to wander when you're sitting in bed, it doesn't necessarily add to it doesn't result in positive thoughts or proactive thoughts.
Yeah.
Get up right away, tell your brain to move outside of sleep mode into active mode, day mode.
I like
and
it.
then you run from there. I haven't done it yet. So
well, and it's a lot easier when it's brighter out at 6 a.m.
Totally.
When it's dark until 7:30, I hate that. So I'm glad that the days are becoming a little longer.
Yeah, and then in June out here, so I'm only a year in. But June, what does it get? It gets light out at 5:15?
Yeah, oh yeah, even a little earlier.
Okay.
So you'll naturally become a morning person though in the summer because that's the only time we get. So you've been here a year now from New York.
Almost 1 year to the day. Yeah,
and
March 31st.
we talked back in January about how things were going. How's it going now? A year in, what would you tell yourself a year ago, moving from New York, knowing what you know now, a year into living in the desert?
Give yourself time to get acquainted with the place, right? I think right away when I moved here, you start putting expectations on meeting people and building a community and hitting the ground running with work and other things. But you all know, it takes time to build that out, especially you're in a new place. And so it's not super hard to kind of fill the social calendar, but to really feel like you're building kind of those deep, meaningful relationships and really being part of a community, that takes time. So I think I'm okay with that. I know that it'll take time. If I'm going to be here for a while, it's going to take, more years to feel like that. And I think the first couple months here, I was like, it has to happen right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't. It takes time.
And it's not, Phoenix, Scottsdale, it's not really a neighborhood kind of feel.
Yeah.
So you're not walking out of your house, going for a walk, getting the dog, doing, grabbing some coffee. That's not, it's a driving town. It's not a walking town.
Yeah. I'm used to cities where everyone's kind of right on top of each other. you're not in your car all the time. People aren't in gated communities out here, especially in Scottsdale. It's kind of the opposite. So you don't meet people sort of organically as easily unless you want to meet people out here.
Yeah,
Tourists.
we are in a new studio. It's kind of a new look. Yeah, no, and Old Town Scottsdale is it's tourists. Yeah. Okay, well, before we dive into what our topic was, I want to kind of piggyback off of that a little bit. Now, you moved from New York. What has golf been an easy way, though, to build a community? I mean, obviously you work in the golf industry. So do you want to build your life around that, or are you kind of looking at other areas?
I mean, I think it's what's easy is there's so many people in golf and who want to be in golf and around golf here that it's not hard to build out that group of people. I think, though, if I look at my life being in the industry and then being new to the area, starting to build out my community, as we were talking about before, my entire life could be wrapped up in the game. And while the game's fun and great, I do need to carve out time outside of that. But the great part about this place is you have people who love to hike, who love to be outside, who love to do yoga, who love it's not hard. I mean, the hard part the opposite, I would say, of what we talked about before around being in an area that's smaller here. I mean, whatever you want to do, you can do. You can find a pocket of people that are into something, whatever you're into.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that's the cool part, volunteering here or hiking here, or there's so much going on. So
do you think all your East Coast friends are rolling their eyes listening to you making a morning routine and doing cold plunges?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it.
I don't know if I'm going to share this episode with everyone now. Oh, that's funny.
I love it.
And I actually even that's funny you bring that up, because when I came out here, one of the things I talked about was how I love to hike. And in one of the articles they had when I first got my job, I said something about being a hiker, and they quoted me as an avid hiker. And all my buddies back home were like, "You're not an avid hiker.
You're so full of shit."
Yeah. So now they're like, "Oh yeah, you're into cold plunge now too, Joe." Yeah. So,
do you still like to hike? Like, have you hiked quite a bit?
I've hiked. I'd probably say I do a couple a month.
Yeah.
They range from really short ones, 15, 20 minutes, near the office, to the bigger ones.
Exactly.
I do love those hikes up north, though. Sedona, Flagstaff. I mean, just getting outside of the bubble.
That's what I prefer. Yeah. I love to hike too, but not in the desert. I like to get up north, get in the woods, get in the trees, and then I love it. I feel like I can zone out. But in the desert, I'm like, it's too sunny. I'm blinded. It's like not pretty.
Yeah. Are you a solo hiker or a group hiker?
I'd say more solo, because I'm going to put my earbuds in and I just kind of want to go. And I'm really bad. I shouldn't say that. When I'm hiking up like Camelback or Squaw Peak, I'm struggling. I'm taking multiple breaks. Like I saw JJ Watt do a video after he hiked Camelback, and he was like, all these people are lapping me. I thought I was fit. Apparently not. Like, hiking's a whole different kind of being fit.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into it. USGA had two very big announcements recently. So let's get into the golf ball ordeal. So here's the thing. I don't know a lot about what's going on. I've seen the headlines. I kind of know surface level what's going on, but I don't know. I haven't read up on it a ton. So let's first explain what's going on with the golf ball rollback. Like, what caused this? What is it?
So the floor is mine.
Yeah.
With a really big topic.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Maybe that's where we start. It is a huge topic, right? There's so much complexity. This has been a conversation going on in the golf industry for decades, if not longer. Right?
It has been.
It has, yeah. And you go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, even the middle part of last century, there was always this conversation around, is the golf ball going the right distance? Mm-hmm. And so over time, you saw that evolve. You saw some of those specifications and limitations on equipment change. What's happening now, though, is there's been this, really a statement of facts, a statement of conclusions that the golf ball now is going further than it ever has. And it's potentially impacting the way the game is played at the highest levels of the game. Mm-hmm. And so what the USGA and the R&A have done is the last several years, they spent a lot of time doing research on exactly what the outcomes are of these increased hitting distances. And they've said, we've got to look at this and take a really strong look at this. We're not going to recommend solutions right away. We're going to do the research. We're going to figure out exactly what's going on with the ball and the club. Why are golfers hitting it so much in the highest level of the game, hitting it so much further than they used to? And look, there's a lot of attributing factors to that, right? Mm-hmm. More athletic players, more research and data around how you hit the golf ball further, right? TrackMan and all the tracking that we have on the way the golf swing is most efficient. So there's obviously a lot of contributing factors, but the long answer to start this conversation is that we are now at a point where at the highest levels of the game, there is more of an emphasis on the skill of hitting it further and less of an emphasis on the other parts of the game that frankly make the game really, really, really fun to watch and fun to learn and play.
Yeah.
So when you think about the pro tour now, it's a lot of, hit it as far as I can down the fairway or not in the fairway. Let me get a wedge onto the green. And so the point is hitting distances is so much more important. The other part of this, which we can get into, is the sustainability element of this, right? Golf courses are now being built, and they're being built on bigger footprints and more acreage, right? And that's going to impact the game. It's already impacted the game. You think about water here in Arizona, how important water is and how scarce it is. If you start getting golf courses that are continuing to be built on bigger footprints that require more land and more water, maybe we're not in a dire situation now, but if it continues, if hitting distances continue to increase, we may be in a really tough spot 10, 15, 20 years from now. And so a lot of this that the USGA and R&A are considering is really thinking about how the increases in hitting distances impact the game going forward.
Okay, so what was the actual announcement then? What was it? This is going to happen at this date, or was there parameters to making a golf ball set, or is it just like something's coming, look out kind of thing? So
it's kind of been like that, what you just said, for the last few years, right? We're going to do a lot of research. We're going to figure out what the impact is of these increases. The big announcement last week was now the USGA and R&A have proposed a solution in some ways to this. And what they're doing is, there's a couple of really key points here. The first point is that this is a proposal to start. And the proposal is that they would introduce a modified requirement or specification for the golf ball in terms of how far it can go when it's tested at a certain swing speed in the USGA and R&A testing centers. What they're doing is they're basically saying we're going to put a ball out there that's just going to go a little bit less further for the pros. So you're talking about a 5 to 10% decrease in hitting distances. That's a proposal though. So it's on the table. People have the chance to comment over the next, I think it's 5-6 months until mid-August. And that's what the community wants. That's what the USGA and R&A want. They want people to chime in. Give us your thoughts, right? So that's the first part. The second part is that the proposal is not going to impact the recreational game. This is just the tour and the highest, I shouldn't say just the tour, the highest levels of the game, the elite players. And then, how that kind of filters down and which tournaments use it and which tournaments don't, that'll be an interesting, debate.
That's almost step 2.
Correct. And then the third part I'll add is just that this is going to be a proposal that they're recommending would be instituted no earlier than January 1st, 2026.
Okay.
So it's a lot. It's much ado about nothing in many ways, right? There's a big statement that they've made that we think that there's a golf ball that should be used to again help impact these increases in hitting distances. But it's a proposal, and it's not going to be in place for 3 years at the earliest, and it's not going to affect me and you.
Yeah. So. Do you think that the golf ball manufacturers knew this was coming down the line? And what has been the general consensus or, feedback that the main ball manufacturers are giving?
Yeah, that's where it gets really complex because, the manufacturers, for better or for worse, have had a really big influence in the game for decades, right? I mean, if you look at how equipment is marketed, right? They're using tour pros to wear their hats or their shirts, and they're using the same equipment that they can sell to golfers. And so there's this interesting dynamic in golf where in other sports, governing bodies make the rules and the equipment manufacturers, they just have to abide by them. Yeah. But in golf, because of the clout and power of the manufacturers, and in many ways, I want to commend them. They've helped grow the game and they've helped innovate, right? But the USGA and the R&A have had to really include them because of their influence. And so what I would say to answer your question, I think there's an interesting conversation going on with equipment manufacturers where a lot of them feel like this local rule is making a statement that innovation isn't important or that innovation isn't valuable in golf. Yeah. Right. That we can't make the ball go further. And the USGA and the R&A are kind of are punishing us for being really good at what we do.
Yeah.
And that's a fair point. We can get into whether that's that's legitimate or whether or not the USGA and the R&A would have a counterpoint to that. Mm-hmm. But that's where a lot of them stand. And then so you hear a lot from the players who in many ways represent these manufacturing companies. And so sometimes, they're in line with that point. Look, we've gotten more athletic. We're getting a bigger advantage by hitting it further. And now you're going to punish us. Yeah. So again, I don't want to speak for the manufacturers, but you're hearing that a lot right now.
And it's definitely a golf ball issue. This is not more of an equipment club issue at all.
Well, that's a good point. So, there's a way, there's a lot of ways the USGA and the R&A could propose solutions to this, including golf course setup, including, ways you can, maybe take the driver out of someone's hand. Mm-hmm. So there's ways you can and one of them is changing the club too. The USGA at this point, and again, I don't want to speak for the USGA, but I think they're thinking that the golf ball is likely a little bit easier to change and modify. But you never know. There could be proposal down the road that there be club modifications too. Yeah. This is just one part of their proposed solution to start.
What's this word? Bifurcation. Did I say it right?
You nailed it.
Okay. What is that? What does that meaning? Why do I keep seeing that word come up in this conversation?
It's a great question because this is getting at the age-old debate in golf of one of the cool parts about golf. One of the things that maybe you love about it, I would say that I love about it, is that when you're going out to play, you are playing the same game by the same rules that those players who are going to be playing in the Masters in a few weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Bifurcation's a kind of a trigger word. It's a word that people go to a lot when we talk about equipment changes, because what basically there's, the proposal on the table is saying is that in the future, the rules that are being played by the PGA Tour players or the other elite players may not be the same equipment rules that we play by. Mm-hmm. And so now are you moving a little bit away from this age-old sort of phenomenon or tenet of the game of, okay, the pros are playing a game, they're playing by a different set of rules than we are. Yeah. The thing what I would say to that though is that bifurcation is in many ways already happening. When you go play, or when I go play at a course that the tour pros play, once in a while get on a course, I'm not going back to playing the same set of tees that they're playing.
No, thank you.
No.
That's no fun.
And if if I'm playing a casual round too, and I don't find my ball, if I'm counting my score, I'll play by the local rule and I'll drop my ball and take 2 strokes. But they don't even play that on the PGA Tour. Yeah. So this idea that bifurcation is being crossed, or we're moving into bifurcation if we do this change with the model local rule, and that's the first time we've done bifurcation, I don't know if that's completely fair or true. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We're not playing the same game.
No. That's
clearly.
We're trying.
Yes.
We're trying.
Yeah.
Okay. So match play was this weekend.
Yeah.
In Austin, at Austin Country Club. Rory's average drive was 326. At one point he had a drive that the announcer said was 420 yards. And he shortened his driver this past week.
Pretty wild.
It was, I would argue that sometimes seeing those long drives are just as fun to watch as, the player scrambling from 175 yards out, and not getting as close. Mm-hmm. So is that an argument, mostly from the viewer standpoint that I'm seeing out there, the comments from viewers is, don't change it. Let them hit it as far as possible.
So I see the point. I guess my counter or question would be, the fact that it's going 375, let's just use that drive example, for example. If the ball went 15 yards less and you're a viewer, either on site or on TV, would you tell the difference?
Yeah, exactly. And that's we're talking 5 to 10% change.
Yeah. Without getting into the technicalities of how they're testing, essentially you would look at a 330 yard drive going 315, 310.
Yeah. And still the longest drivers will still be hitting it the longest.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other part though, too, that's a little interesting is if you look at the numbers from Rory this past weekend, he's in it, like you said, 350, 360, even almost 400. I think that one that he hit at 420, I think he had a little help from a cart path.
A little cart path downwind.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. The help that I get on that.
Listen, he's still going to the bar after and letting everyone know that he hit that 420.
Yeah. But the point is even a 5 to 10% reduction of those yardages, he's still hitting it 330, 340 on those drives. And then you could argue, is the reduction even enough, right? That if he's still hitting at 330, 320, I mean, he's getting a significant advantage. He's hitting it over bunkers. There still could be a distance issue. So what's interesting right now to debate is, the USGA and the RNA, I think, are doing their best to get this across the finish line, at least get this out in the public. But you could argue that this reduction maybe not even enough for the tour pros to really make an impact.
Yeah.
Because in the next 3 years, they're going to continue to hit it further. So if you're doing a 5 to 10% reduction 3 years from now, they might just be getting it back to here or a couple of years ago.
Exactly. How close does this get to the amateur golfer?
The closest it'll get, at least with this proposal, is for folks who are playing at the highest level of the game, state, amateur championships, junior players who are playing on the elite tours like the AJGA, those who are playing and trying to qualify for USGA championships or international championships.
How about college?
Potentially college.
And we're talking men and women.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, of course, every committee would have to make a decision if this went into effect of whether or not they want to implement it. I think it's fair to say, though, that the women's game, it's probably less of an impact on the women's game, because if you think about it, those who are hitting it further, they can just go back at the tee. Right. So, but it's a good question. So, I mean, all those groups we just talked about and named are kind of right in the middle of like, do those committees choose to implement it or do they not choose to implement it? And then even at the highest level of the game, the PGA Tour would still have to choose to implement it. And these other tours would have to choose to implement it. So, the average player, 5 to 10 handicap playing at the club level at this point with this proposal, it won't impact them at all.
It's not. And is it something that these balls will be sold in a store? Or you think? Yeah.
Good question. Right? I mean, and that's where we get back into the equipment manufacturers. I mean, it could be another opportunity for them to make more money, right? If they're selling the Titleist Pro V1 that we can buy, and then there's the Titleist Pro V1 MLR ball, model local rule ball. Now you have two lines of equipment that they could sell. That's a question that I think is up in the air. I mean, if there's enough committees using this and there's a market for it, then maybe they choose to sell it.
Interesting. Okay, so did you follow the match play yesterday, at least the semifinals and the finals?
Yeah, I was on the road a little bit, but I did catch.
You're listening in.
Yeah.
I mean, those semifinal matches were spectacular.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them very much. Austin Country Club, I think, is just absolutely gorgeous, and I don't know if you caught. I don't know what hole it was, but Scotty Scheffler did something that he hasn't done a lot this year or even last year, which is he missed a 4-foot putt to win the match. I think it was maybe hole 18, 19, somewhere in there. Did he sleep last night?
Oh, man. It's a good question. I think he does, because he seems so laissez-faire, just relaxed. It doesn't seem like much bothers him.
But you could see that he was getting a little yippy with the putter yesterday. He was missing putts that I haven't seen him miss.
Yeah. The thing with this tournament that I think they're now sunsetting it. I don't know if they're going to have any more.
Apparently it's not scheduled for 2024 because the impression I get is because of the lack of sponsorship.
And then I think there's a whole designated elevated event thing going on too, where they're kind of getting rid of the WGC events. But my point was going to be, I mean, these guys, it's a grind that week. They start playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then 36 Saturday, Sunday.
They were, I think, 105 holes.
I just got to imagine that
Sam Burns played.
Yeah. At the end there, I mean, you're making putts all week. Eventually, putting's hard. It's going to catch
eventually,
up to you.
I'm done. I want to go home now.
Yeah. And he's got a major to get ready for, which is crazy to me too. They play all these holes and then they've got a week off if they don't want to play Texas. But they're getting back into major championship mode in 5-6 days.
To the Masters, yeah.
So
how do you feel about the PGA not having a match play event for 2024 and possibly even longer?
I mean, you mentioned sponsors, and I think that's the biggest challenge, right? I mean, you think about the fact that the semifinals matches have had some great players and some of the marquee names in that on that Sunday morning. The problem with that tournament is that in years past, because of the craziness of match play, you might get to those last couple of days and it might be some higher or lower ranked people that are still playing. And so that's hard to sell to sponsors.
Yeah. That makes sense. They were saying that the lack of sponsorship was due to because the event is so volatile. They don't want to take the risk. But now you explaining it that way, like, yeah, this weekend was great. That it happened. Lucky. It happened the way they wanted it to happen. But what if, it was 4 players that aren't well known? It
is kind of a bummer though. I mean, match play is so fun, and I don't know how you feel about it. It's basically a whole other game, right? And to see the highest level of players not play that on the PGA Tour, I feel like that'd be a miss.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
It is fun to watch. It is. It's different. I mean, just like having the, the family competition that they do in December where they play with, a mother or son or daughter or whatever. Yeah. That's always fun to watch. Like anything different is fun on the PGA Tour, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. Okay, so to our second announcement that the USGA made, which was about the championship qualifying process. So fill us in on how, if you wanted to try and qualify for USGA AM, the USGA Women's AM, what's changed now?
Yeah, so the USGA runs, I think it's about 14 national championships. And traditionally what they do to fill the fields is they use either the official world golf ranking for the pro events or the open events, and then the amateur events, they will use the world amateur golf ranking, and there's different ways you can get in. But the biggest way to really fill the field from the USGA perspective is they have qualifiers across the country. And state and regional golf associations typically run those qualifiers. That qualifying process is going to continue, and it works well. What's great though about this recent announcement is the USGA is saying there's some really good amateur championships that are being run by state and regional golf associations that don't necessarily come with a prize other than you winning the state amateur championship or kind of pride or whatever you would get locally. They're basically, the USGA with this recent announcement is saying, we recognize there's some really high level competitions going on out there already that these players who are playing in our qualifiers also play in. Let's recognize those people who win the biggest championships in their local area, and let's get them into USGA championships. If you won a state AM before, even if it was a really tough win, you didn't necessarily get into a USGA championship. You had to qualify separately. Yeah.
So. Because a lot of times these qualifiers are just 18 holes. Even the men's side, right? Men's AM is just 18 holes, or is it 36?
So the women's AM and men's AM, it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
For example, the junior AM used to be 36 and now it's 18. And there's a bigger field for the junior amateur. But you're right. If you don't bring your game and you're a really good player and you only have an 18-hole qualifier, you might not play well that day. We know golf.
I mean, that's golf.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, a state AM championship that can go 4 or 5 days is probably going to identify the best player in that field. And then now the USGA is saying, let's make sure that player is in our championships.
And it's up to the state to say what their state AM is and what their format is. It could be 3 days of stroke play, 4 days of stroke play, or it could be match play too.
Exactly. Yep. And so this is not for all 14 championships to start. It's really for what's on the table right now is the US AM, the women's AM, and the junior AM, and then the girls junior. And then there's also part of this announcement where it's not only the state amateur championships, but there might also be high level competitions outside of the state amateur championship that have good enough fields that would warrant either an exemption into the actual championship, or for example, the USAM, there's going to be like a local and a regional. So there might be some championships where if you do well enough and it's not the state AM, you can at least get through to the first, through the first stage to regional.
So I saw someone comment saying that now with this change, it actually is it's more expensive for the amateur to try and qualify, because now isn't it 2 stages? You go through one stage, you qualify, and then you have to go through another national stage in order.
For the USAM specifically, yes, you would have two separate stages. The question on how expensive it would be, though, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. There may be a chance that your registration fee just takes care of all of that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
Up front.
Oh,
so
I
I don't
see.
think because there's just another stage, it's automatically going to double the price or what have you.
Yeah. And still it's very worth it. Okay. So what do you think about those changes?
It's exciting. I mean, and I don't know how you feel or what you've heard from other tournament players that you play with, but from some of the folks I've talked to, I mean, now they're more incentivized when they tee it up at a state am to know, oh, heck, if I play really well this week, it's not just pride or that trophy that I'm looking at there. It's I can get into the US Am, or the Junior Am or Women's Am. So I think it's great, and I think it's a great message the USGA is sending that they're recognizing that great championships are being run locally.
Yeah. And this is almost a testing period. And if it goes well, that they might expand to the mid-am level and the senior level too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can you tell us the difference? What's the USGA compared to the RNA?
Good question. Golf is very fragmented. It's fragmented locally and nationally. There's so many people and organizations that are involved to help advance the game and promote the game. You could look at that as a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I think there's probably threads of both of those things. As far as the USGA and the RNA specifically, those are the two organizations that help govern the game. And they run two of the major championships that are, on the men's side and women's side. So when you think about the rules of golf, the rules of equipment rules, everything that the rules are played across the world, and there's one single set of rules. The USGA and the RNA write those rules together. They work on those rules, and year over year they're making updates and changes, and they're sharing that with the golf community. But the important part is, the USGA is involved, and the USGA oversees the work that's going on in the United States, and the championships that are happening here. And then there's a couple other territories that they're responsible for. The RNA is the rest of the world. And that's an agreement that they've come to over the years, but they had the same sort of seat at the table, and that they're both deciding on, what are the rules that we're all going to play by.
Okay. Excellent. Joe, thanks for being on today and explain. I mean, I could not explain those two things at all. So I was like, Joe, come on in, come on the podcast, fill us in, because not only can I not explain it, but I'm really not interested in it unless it's explained to me and how it affects me. It's like, it seems big to me. It seems like it's not something that is going to affect me, but I still want to be educated in it enough to be in the conversation if it does come up.
And that's what is a little confusing about golf. I mean, we could talk about all the different organizations that are involved. And for someone who plays golf a lot like you, for someone like you to not even really understand or see or like that says a lot about the fact that there are too many organizations that need to work more closely together to make sure it's easy for the golfer and for the facility to know, how do I improve my golfer experience, or how as a club or facility do I get resources to better improve my business, right? So what I think that, at the national level and international level, I mean, these organizations could probably work a little bit more closely together to make it easier for the golfer to know. And then locally here, I mean, here in Arizona, we're trying our best to work more closely with the PGA section and the superintendents and the first tee to make it clear to someone who's new to the game, like, here's where you go to get anything you need, whether you want a job in golf, whether you want to play golf, whether you want, to start your own, junior golf program, go here, right?
Exactly.
So the more we can do that, I think in the game, the less confusion there'll be in
Absolutely.
the market.
And here's the thing. We've been talking a lot about elite competition during this episode, but I want to touch on what the Arizona Golf Association just rolled out this past week, and it's the one-day net series. So how did that come into play? Why did you feel that addition was necessary in the AGA schedule?
I think you hit on the main point, right? We do a lot of great things at the elite level in terms of running championships and getting the best players around the state to play with each other and compete. But we have 90,000 members and growing. So there's a lot of those people out there that maybe feel that there's benefit to our association by being able to have a handicap or getting access to other benefits. But to now have an opportunity to play in a competition and meet new people and know there's a place for them to go and not feel like they have to play at the state amateur or the women's state amateur. That's the whole point, right? So it's these casual one-day events. We're going to run about 7 or 8 of them this year, and then we're going to have a championship at the end. And we would just encourage people to get out there, give it a try. I mean, there's there's no pressure. I mean, you're using a handicap. If you don't play well, so be it. That's fine.
Yeah.
If you do end up playing well, then you could advance onto our championship at the end of the year. So it's exciting.
Exactly. And for those of you listening who are part of a league, or maybe you belong to a club, this is the same idea. It's just run by the state association, Arizona Golf Association, and you're going to all different courses throughout the state. So you usually get a really good value, because you get a tee time, you get your greens fees, you also, have the chance to win a prize, and anything else. Do we get a meal, Joe? Is there a meal there? Do you have a snack?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do all that, and then I think you're hitting on a good point too. That in the future, and I think even this year, there'll be some courses where either it's expensive to play or you might not be able to play
exactly
because it's a private course, and you pay a nominal fee. It's not nothing, but it's not something it's not something that's going to hopefully be cost prohibitive, and you get to play a golf course you might not have gotten to play.
Exactly. And again, this is for men and women, all handicap index levels. I even was looking at the schedule yesterday, thinking about which ones I was going to sign up for. But if you're not in Arizona, check out your state golf association. I'm sure they have similar events out there. What do you think you'd look for if you're looking at your state golf association and you want to make sure there's a net component to it? What do you think you have to see in an event registration too? Because I know a lot of people might look and say, oh, wait, okay, women's state championship. Maybe that's something that's for me, when really it might not be. So what keywords do you think you have to look for?
I think you said a few of them there. I would look for net. I would look for member play days. Oftentimes that's it's a cue of, we're going to play a golf course that our members are going to have access to that maybe wouldn't otherwise have access to. We're going to play a private course or what have you. Social competition, I would look for that too. Those two words, social and competition together, that implies that, you're going to have, there's a social element to it, but you're going to still compete. So just
when all else fails, just give them a call.
Absolutely.
They're there to help, and they want you to sign up. Like they put on these events. They want you to come out. They want you to play. They want you to meet new people, play new courses, compete. It's a whole nother level of fun in the game.
Golf is a community, and the more we can do we started this conversation talking about community, the more we can do to foster that community, and build that into someone's golfer experience, the better. So that's a big part of what we try to do at the Arizona Golf Association.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joe, for being on.
Thanks, Tori. This is fun.
Yep, absolutely. Until next time. Thanks, guys. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the details on today's show. If you haven't already, please give a 5-star written review on your favorite podcast platform, or even screenshot this episode and send it to your golf buddies. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the first tee in a couple days.